Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Humza Yousaf is a world-class hypocrite. He is demanding that Douglas Ross, the Scottish Conservative leader, he is an MP as well as an MSP. He sits in Parliament. He is the leader of the Scottish group of MPs at Westminster. And Humza Yousaf is demanding that he makes all massive amount, 6 of them, the Scottish Conservatives, vote to give Boris a bloody nose, basically to have his pass removed, to endorse the 90-day ban, to force the cancellation of the privileges, things like that. There's all sorts of things going on. But Humza Yousaf is saying that he demands that Douglas Ross forces this to happen. And this is coming from a man who said to his own party, you either back me on Nicola Sturgeon or you must consider leaving the party. What is he on? What is this man on? I mean, in fact, he can't force that on anyone. People in the SNP who don't like Nicola Sturgeon and want her, and to say things and don't agree with his allowing her not to be suspended are quite free to do that. He can't force them out. There's nothing he can do. He, of course, is powerless. But he's such a hypocrite. Anyway, we'll have a look at this story. On one reflection, I actually agree with some of the views given, but I don't think it should be imposed by writ. It should be a free vote, which is what Douglas Ross is saying. Anyway, here goes. So SNP hypocrisy laid bare after the Nats demand Douglas Ross forces MPs to back the Boris report. The call comes just days after Humza Yousaf was forced to threaten his own MSPs who did not back his decision to not suspend Nicola Sturgeon. The guy, he is saying, "Oh, you must do this, must do that." He's not in any part. He's not in the Conservative Party. Douglas Ross can flip him the bird. Douglas Ross doesn't have to do as he's told. But Douglas Ross is actually going to vote for the things that Humza Yousaf wants him to vote for. But that's because it's his choice. But he's not forcing that on other members, because this is not a party matter. And he's quite right. What's happening here is a parliamentary issue, not a party political issue. And so therefore, by convention, MPs have a free vote on parliamentary matters. That's always been the case. They don't whip parliamentary matters. They only whip party political matters. There is a difference. Anyway, the SNP has been called out for its glaring hypocrisy after the party demanded Douglas Ross forces his Scottish MPs to back the Privileges Committee report into Boris Johnson's COVID rule breaking. The Tories have pledged a free vote to its members on the issue, as is tradition on these things. Anyway, but the Nats want the Scottish Conservative leader to insist that the group of 6 Scottish Tories all vote for the findings, which recommended a 90-day parliamentary suspension. I personally would have put him in jail. That's a different video for a different day. This is had he not already stepped down as an MP. The committee has also said the former MP should not receive a pass for the parliamentary estate, as is the usual custom for ex-MPs after concluding Mr Johnson misled Parliament over gatherings at Downing Street. That I do agree with. They have got precedent for this. John Bercow, previous speaker, when he went, he was so unpopular with everybody. He was a horrible shit of a man. And they didn't give him the parliamentary pass privilege. And he railed at that. They also didn't make him a Lord, which is also the usual thing that happens to ex-speakers. He absolutely hated that. But that's what happens when you become a politicised speaker. It annoyed both sides of the House, and so that never happened. And it was beautiful to behold. Anyway, Mr Ross, who sits as an MP as well as an MSP, has confirmed he will back the vote. But that wasn't enough for the SNP Commons Deputy Leader, Mhairi Black. Oh, she'd lifted her head up from the bowl of Colombian long enough to make a comment, had she? She's always an example of someone who I don't think washes as often or as well as she could. Anyway, she also wants Mr Ross to back the scrapping of Mr Johnson's resignation honours list, the cancelling of his allowance offered to former Prime Ministers, and the recouping of legal fees incurred. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a first in the history of this channel. I completely agree with Mhairi Black. All 3 of those things. I think he should have his resignation honours list scrapped. I think he should be cancelled of his allowance. And I think all the legal fees should be recouped. What that man did to this country with lockdown, and how many children are no longer alive because of that lockdown. I've done a video on this. It's disgusting. He and a lot of others senior officials as well as parliamentarians, the scientists, all this, they all push for this lockdown. The damage it's done, they need to go to prison for a very long time. But that's a separate issue. Unbelievably agreeing with Mhairi Black. But anyway, the Scottish Conservatives have bitten back and pointed out that the call comes in the same week SNP leader, strong word, that word leader is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this sentence, Humza Yousaf was reportedly forced to tell MSPs they should leave the party if they do not back his decision not to suspend Nicola Sturgeon from the SNP. Sturgeon was arrested, blah, blah, blah. Now, he's saying, oh, I don't want to... The vast majority in the party want her suspended, and he's saying no. And he's saying, if you don't agree with me, leave the party. I hope many do. Never, ever issue an ultimatum, because you always lose. Because he's saying, if you don't back me, you either leave the party or whatever. They'll just keep criticising her, which shows that he's got no leadership. He will be humiliated, because what's he going to do? He can't fire these people. He can't force them out. He can't stop them being members of the SNP. Even though he's the leader, he doesn't have that power. And what does he do? Goes to the committee that does have the power and says, can you throw them out of the party? They're still sitting as MSPs, only now there's a whole load of MSPs thrown out of the party. The SNP don't have the majority anymore, and you've got this group over here who'll start fighting that way. It's going to be delicious to see, because he either shuts up and backs down, humiliating, he does get them thrown out, destroys his government, or they leave the party of their own free will, destroys this government. There's no win for him, but then you don't expect there to be. He's a bit thick. Anyway, the party sent her flowers and a card after her arrest. This is Sturgeon, obviously. But some within the group, including MSPs Ash Regan and Michelle Thompson, reckon she should either quit or have the whip removed while the police investigation runs its course. In response to Miss Black, the Scottish Conservative said Douglas has made his views clear and will vote in favour of the committee's findings. As it's a free vote, it's up to other MPs how they choose to vote. Some MPs, SNP MPs, should look to their own party in Holyrood, where MSPs are being forced to back Nicola Sturgeon. Mr Ross initially said Mr Johnson should go after details of Partygate began to emerge. He pulled back on this after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, but eventually voted against the then Prime Minister in a confidence vote which precipitated his departure. The trouble is, much as I loathe Boris Johnson for what the damage he's done to this country with that lockdown, he is the only hope the Tories have got. Now, even if he came back tomorrow, if he ousted Sunak tomorrow and came back as leader, he cannot save the Tories. They will lose the next election. The only difference is the size of the loss. And that's what the difference will be. But the thing is, there's a lot of Tories on that side of the benches. They know full well that without Johnson, they are done. Their goose is well and truly cooked. Even though he is a loathsome man, a liar, a serial adulterer, a man who doesn't know how many children he has. Anyway, it is not clear what power, if any, Mr Ross has to instruct Scottish MPs on their vote in the Commons. It has been reported that all Tory members have been allowed a single line whip by the party, and that means they do not have to vote. Mr Black said Douglas Ross must finally grow a backbone and whip his MPs to vote for tough sanctions against his disgraced former leader Boris Johnson. And it is well known that Mr Ross lacks authority with Scottish Tory MPs and MSPs who are discontent with his poor leadership. It's a bit rich coming from Mhairi Black. He might even be desperate to avoid a leadership challenge himself, but failing to whip his MPs will only make him look even weaker. Mr Ross can't hide from the fact that he and his Tory colleagues put a serial liar into number 10. Again, Mhairi Black has nailed it, and I don't like saying that. And he repeatedly backed Johnson despite all the damage he inflicted on Scotland. Not just Scotland, on the whole of the UK. Yeah, horrible woman. Why am I agreeing with her? Because she's right this time. It would be ironic if he doesn't whip them. If he tells them it's a free vote and all 6 voted for this action. Humza Yousaf will have nowhere to go then, will he? But he really is an idiot and a hypocrite. And it isn't, as I say, it isn't a whipped matter. They get the one line whip, which means you can vote if you want. We're not forcing it. All votes have whips. There's 1 line whip, a 2 line whip, or a 3 line whip. The 2 line whip is you must vote. If you're going to vote, you must vote for the government. And a 3 line whip is you absolutely must turn up and vote, or you lose the whip from the party. And they've had people in the past, and I've seen this, where they've actually go into hospitals, put MPs on stretchers and carry them into Parliament so that they could vote to get things through. It's been that serious in the past. So that's what a 3-line whip is. But a 1-line whip is, look, you know, if you want to vote, if you don't, nobody cares. But that's it. So it's a free vote, effectively. Humza Yousaf, SNP, he cannot force his views onto the Conservatives, much as he'd like to. But then he can't even force his views on his own party, much as he'd like to. And they're all sitting there looking at him with a bit of contempt. It's funny, isn't it? Fancy being the leader and having absolutely no power whatsoever. Anyway, I'm coming up. Humza Yousaf really needs to put his own party in order before he starts attacking other people's. He's got so many problems that he cannot solve. He's got personnel problems, he's got relationship problems, he's got ineptitude problems and stupidity problems, and yet he seems to think that the main problem is the 6 Tory MPs. Unbelievable man. But the Tories themselves, they have caused this. They first of all, when they got rid of Boris Johnson, who was the only one that could keep them together, they got in the dimwit who lasted about a month, and then they ousted her, and then they put in the one man that the membership didn't vote for. They absolutely rejected Rishi Sunak, but the Parliamentary Party foisted him on top of against the members' wishes and against the wishes of everyone in this country. And since becoming Prime Minister, he has done nothing but leave a trail of destruction everywhere. We haven't had any kind of leadership in this country for quite some time. I couldn't tell you the last time you ever felt that there was someone in charge who knew what they were doing. But the current lot, I think they do know what they're doing, but I think they're deliberately doing it. I think they're deliberately impoverishing people, making life work. They're making decisions that will make everything worse, and I think they're doing it on purpose. All part of this globalist conspiracy that people say you're a nutter if you talk about, but it's just happening time and time and time again, all over the world. The same things, the same rules. Nobody is standing up for the people. It's all for the elites. And this Tory party is no different. They don't give a shit about people. And they certainly don't care about all the children that died during COVID, because nobody is asking the police to investigate the decision-making process. Now, we have got the COVID inquiry going on, but how much of that will come out in truth, to be honest? The truth will be hidden. The truth will be obfuscated, if it even approaches the truth. The police need to go in. There needs to be a massive investigation. Names, details, dates, communications, everything. Certainly the WhatsApps and all this. And they need to bring in a law, a very stern law, that no MP, no politician, regardless level, from county councillor, town councillor, parish clerk, don't care, no MP may ever discuss business on a WhatsApp, and if they do, inadvertently do so, but sometimes you're going to make mistakes, it must be immediately presented and put through again, but on official channels where records are kept. And the punishment must be random interrogation, random checking of WhatsApps, and if any politician of any hue or colour or any rank is found to have used a WhatsApp or any kind of social media or anything like that to have discussed political business, it's got to be 30 years in jail. And that way you can stop all the hiding and the conniving and the cover-ups, and the fact that they're doing it all through WhatsApp so that it doesn't go through proper channels, because they know that what they were doing was so blatantly wrong and illegal in many cases that the public would have marched on Downing Street and strung them up from a lamppost by their balls. And they're scared of that, and they should be. We are many, they are few. But they're right to do this to Boris Johnson, but not just him. All of them, including Rishi Sunak, he was at the top. You know, all of them need to have this done to them. They all need to go, to be thrown out, to lose their pension, to lose any payments, to lose rights and privileges. And then at the end of the COVID inquiry, if necessary, 20, 30 years in jail for the deaths of those children. I'll stop now because I'm getting angry. Thank you very much for listening. If you like what you see in here on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video, and until next time, stay safe, stay well, Never trust a politician. They're all lying bastards. And goodbye.